When we look back at the long story of our species, we often imagine that great catastrophes were born from wars, plagues, or natural disasters. But if we examine history more closely, we find that some of humanity's greatest downfalls and greatest revolutions began with something far smaller, almost invisible, a single lie. A lie is not just a distortion of truth, it is a seed. Once planted, it grows roots in our minds, shapes our actions, and eventually builds the world we live in. Nations have risen on shared fictions. Relationships have collapsed under private falsehoods. And individuals have lost entire futures by deceiving only themselves. Today, I want to explore a simple but profound idea. Just one lie can change everything. But equally powerful is its opposite. One act of truth can transform the course of a life. The question before us is not whether lies exist, they always have, but whether we will allow a single untruth to determine the future we are capable of creating. Imagine for a moment the simplest possible scenario, a single untruth whispered into existence. It might be a small thing, almost inconsequential in the moment, a half-forgotten fib told to avoid discomfort, a lie meant to protect pride or ambition. Perhaps it is a false promise, a fabricated memory, or an exaggeration whispered to make someone's story seem more impressive. At the time, it feels contained, insignificant. Yet, the history of our species suggests otherwise. The power of a single lie is not in its magnitude, but in its potential to ripple through the minds, hearts, and actions of those who hear it. Lies are not static, they are seeds. And like seeds, some fall on barren soil and die, while others find fertile ground and grow into forests that shade every aspect of life. One lie can influence a decision, a relationship, or even the trajectory of a nation. The subtlety of this truth is often overlooked because we measure lies by their audibility or visibility, not by their potential consequences. But human experience demonstrates repeatedly that the smallest untruth can produce effects far larger than its size would suggest. History itself is a testament to the latent power of falsehood. Consider the tales told to generations, stories that bind people into collective identities, stories that justify actions and shape moral codes. Many of these narratives are grounded in truth, but some originate from exaggeration, myth, or outright deception. Yet the human mind rarely distinguishes between fact and fiction when the story resonates with shared desires or fears. One lie, carefully woven into a compelling narrative, can become indistinguishable from truth. And once that line between reality and imagination blurs, the consequences of the lie are no longer hypothetical. They become real, tangible forces shaping behavior. Individuals act on them, communities organize around them, and societies may rise or fall because of them. The capacity of humans to act upon imagined realities, to align their behaviors according to shared beliefs, true or false, is the engine of culture. And that engine, as powerful as it is susceptible to a single lie. At the personal level, a lie can begin as a shield, a form of self-preservation. It is tempting to tell ourselves, and occasionally others, stories that smooth over shame, fear, or insecurity. One lie told to conceal weakness may seem harmless, even protective. But the human psyche is a curious and persistent observer. Lies, by their nature, require maintenance. They demand attention, memory, and repetition. To sustain a lie, the liar must recall it, protect it from scrutiny, and align actions to avoid exposure. Each lie, no matter how small, compounds cognitive and emotional energy, subtly reshaping identity over time. The mind becomes a landscape where truth and falsehood coexist in a delicate and often unstable balance. What begins as a small deception can grow into a web of contradictions that distorts perception, changes behavior, and isolates the individual from clarity and authentic connection. Consider the social dimensions of a lie. Humans are inherently relational beings. We construct our lives through networks of trust, agreements, and shared understanding. When a lie enters that network, even subtly, it disrupts equilibrium. People respond to the information available to them, and falsehoods distort that information. A single lie can influence a decisio, and a single decision influenced by deception can cascade into consequences far beyond the liar's initial intention. Trust, once fractured, is laborious to restore. Relationships carry histories, and the discovery of a lie retroactively reshapes memory, perception, and emotion. The person who was lied to often experiences not only betrayal, but also a reevaluation of countless previous interactions. A single lie reverberates backward as well as forward, transforming the past and the present simultaneously. History, in its grand scale, offers endless illustrations of this principle. Empires have been built upon myths, revolutions have been sparked by rumors, entire populations have mobilized around beliefs that were, in reality, falsehoods. One lie, repeated, amplified, and embedded in social institutions, can become indistinguishable from truth, shaping the collective imagination and guiding action on a mass scale. Consider, for example, propaganda in times of conflict, or the narratives constructed to justify colonial conquest. Often, these are not lies in isolation, but orchestrated untruths intended to influence perception, manipulate behavior, and control societies. Yet even a single falsehood, strategically introduced, can initiate a chain of events whose impact is profound and lasting. The study of history is, in many ways, the study of the consequences of lies. The recognition that human action is frequently determined not by objective reality, but by the stories we see, collectively accept as true. But the influence of a lie is not limited to the external world. Lies infiltrate thought, perception, and memory, altering the very structure of consciousness. Neurological and psychological studies have shown that the human brain can integrate false information into memory as if it were true. A person who repeats a lie often begins to believe it unconsciously. Over time, the lie becomes part of identity, shaping self-concept, motivation, and decision-making. This internalization transforms the lie from an external deception into an internal reality, and the consequences multiply exponentially. Choices, relationships, careers, and reputations can all be reshaped by this invisible force. A single untruth, once internalized, is capable of influencing actions as much as any external constraint or opportunity. Ethically, the simplicity of a lie masks its complexity. The moral judgment of deception often depends on intention and scale, but even minor lies have ethical weight because they introduce divergence between reality and perception. The liar may justify the act, minimizing its significance or framing it as necessary. Yet the ripple effects do not respect these justifications. The consequences of a lie often exceed the liar's understanding or control. They affect others in ways that are unanticipated, unavoidable, and sometimes irreversible. Each lie carries embedded potential for harm, even if the immediate context appears benign. From an ethical perspective, the responsibility associated with falsehood extends beyond intention to impact, reminding us that the power of a single lie is always greater than we might imagine. In relationships, the dynamics are particularly stark. Romantic partnerships, friendships, family bonds all depend fundamentally on trust. One lie, even minor, can alter the trajectory of these connections. Humans are attuned to subtle cues of incongruence, hesitation, inconsistency, or unusual behavior. Even when a lie is undiscovered consciously, it can create tension, anxiety, and distance. When discovered, it often triggers a reevaluation of past interactions and intentions. One lie can cast a shadow over years of behavior, reshaping narrative and emotion alike. What was once understood as authentic connection can be reinterpreted as manipulation or self-interest. The individual who lied may experience relief in the moment, but over time, the cost of that single act can become heavy, unavoidable, and transformative. Beyond the personal and social realms lies influence, culture, and collective consciousness. Cultural narratives, ideologies, and social norms are built upon shared assumptions, some of which are reinforced by exaggeration or outright falsehoods. Societies operate efficiently when there is a consensus on what is real, valuable, or permissible. A single lie, introduced into this collective framework, can shape perception and behavior at scale. Social movements, economic decisions, and political structures can all be affected. Lies can propagate because they resonate with pre-existing desires, fears, or expectations. Their acceptance is facilitated by the human tendency to believe stories that align with what we already want to believe. In this sense, a lie is not merely false information, it is a potential lever for shaping collective reality. It is crucial to recognize, however, that not all lies are malicious. Many are born of fear, hope, or necessity. Some lies are told to protect, to comfort, or to navigate complex social landscapes. Yet even these well-intentioned untruths carry the potential for unforeseen consequences. A lie, like a stone cast into a pond, generates ripples whose full extent cannot be predicted. Even minor deceptions may inadvertently erode trust, distort understanding, or alter perception. The human mind is not always capable of discerning which lies will remain contained and which will spiral outward. Awareness of this potential amplifies the responsibility inherent in every act of falsehood, reminding us that a single lie is never truly isolated. The existential dimension of a lie is equally profound. Lies shape identity, history, and memory. They influence the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what the world is. They affect ambition, creativity, and courage. One lie can become a barrier, constraining action through fear, guilt, or doubt. Or it can be a catalyst, propelling deception, manipulation, and misjudgment into broader consequences. Every choice, every decision is filtered through perception, and perception is vulnerable to distortion. Lies operate precisely by exploiting this vulnerability. By altering perception, a single untruth can influence countless subsequent decisions, creating patterns of behavior that are invisible until their consequences manifest. Even in the modern era, the phenomenon of a single lie remains evident. In a world saturated with information, where truth and falsehood coexist in an endless stream, the smallest distortion can take on enormous significance. A rumor, an exaggerated claim, or a misrepresented fact can spread with unprecedented speed and reach. Technology magnifies the power of a single lie, enabling it to influence not just one mind, but millions. The principles remain the same as in history. The lie is a seed, perception is soil, and action is the fruit. Modern tools only accelerate the process, making it more urgent to recognize the latent power inherent in even the smallest untruth. To understand the full impact of a lie, one must also consider the human tendency to rationalize and amplify deception. People often unconsciously support lies that align with their beliefs or desires. Cognitive biases make it easier to accept information that confirms pre-existing assumptions, even when the information is false. A single lie can thus find fertile ground in a mind predisposed to believe it, and in a society predisposed to propagate it. The consequences multiply exponentially. One untruth can influence interpretation, guide action, and reinforce further distortion. Lies are not merely personal, they are systemic, and their influence can cascade through networks of perception, behavior, and memory. In conclusion, the significance of a single lie lies not in its size, intention, or immediate consequences, but in its capacity to influence perception, shape behavior, and ripple through relationships, societies, and history itself. The power of a lie is subtle, pervasive, and persistent. It can reshape identity, erode trust, influence collective consciousness, and alter the course of events in ways that are both visible and invisible, immediate and delayed. Human beings live in a delicate balance between reality and imagination, truth and falsehood, trust and doubt. One lie, small and seemingly insignificant, can disturb that balance, sometimes catastrophically, sometimes imperceptibly, but always inevitably. When we consider the consequences of a single lie, it is tempting to imagine its impact as isolated, confined to a moment, a relationship, or a decision. But human experience tells a different story. Lies are not static. They are dynamic forces that extend far beyond the moment in which they are told. They alter perception, affect behavior, and influence the course of events in ways that are both subtle and profound. One lie can change the trajectory of an individual's life, redirect the course of a community, and even reshape history itself. The scope of a lie is measured not by its immediate visibility, but by the ways it interacts with human cognition, social structures, and collective imagination. To understand the true power of a lie, we must examine how it operates across multiple layers of human existence. The psychological, the social, the cultural, and the historical. At the psychological level, a lie is a distortion of reality, an attempt to reshape the world to align with desire, fear, or convenience. When a person tells a lie, they are not only communicating a falsehood to others, they are also influencing their own perception of reality. Cognitive psychology demonstrates that the human mind is remarkably adept at integrating false information into memory as if it were true. Once a lie is internalized, it changes the way a person interprets experience, evaluates decisions, and interacts with the world. This internalization is particularly insidious because it is often invisible to the liar. They may repeat the falsehood until it becomes indistinguishable from lived truth, and over time, the lie shapes identity, ambition, and moral judgment. A single lie told to conceal weakness, avoid embarrassment, or gain advantage may seem minor in the moment, but it becomes a prism through which the individual experiences life. Every choice made, every interaction undertaken is refracted through that prism, and the consequences multiply silently, imperceptibly, yet inexorably. The emotional consequences of lying are equally profound. Lies generate tension, anxiety, and cognitive dissonance. Humans have a remarkable sensitivity to inconsistency, both in themselves and in others. Even when a lie is not discovered by anyone else, it can create unease in the liar, a subtle sense of instability or guilt that permeates thought and behavior. Relationships with others are affected not only by the content of the lie, but by the energy required to maintain it. Lies demand attention, memory, and effort. Every time the liar recalls the untruth, the mind is engaged in a small act of self-deception, reinforcing a pattern that gradually becomes habitual. Over time, this accumulation of internalized falsehoods can constrain freedom of thought, limit authenticity, and shape life in ways that may not be immediately apparent. On the social plane, the consequences of a lie are magnified. Human beings are relational creatures, dependent on networks of trust and shared understanding to navigate life effectively. A single lie, once introduced into these networks, acts as a ripple, subtly altering perception, expectation, and behavior. Consider the dynamics of leadership, for example. A leader who tells a small lie to secure compliance or placate opinion may inadvertently distort collective perception, prompting decisions that would not have been made if the truth were known. In communities, organizations, and societies, the consequences are exponential. Lies are contagious. They propagate through conversation, imitation, and rumor. One untruth can become the foundation for additional falsehoods, creating a lattice of deception that extends far beyond the originator. In this sense, a single lie is not an isolated act. It is the first stone in a cascade of change, a catalyst for social transformation, whether constructive or destructive. The cultural dimension of lying is particularly fascinating. Societies are sustained not only by facts but by shared beliefs, narratives, and imagined realities. Myths, legends, ideologies, and even legal systems are underpinned by collective stories that humans agree to treat as truth. A lie introduced into this cultural fabric has the potential to become institutionalized, woven into the very structures that guide behavior and decision-making. This is how myths become history and stories become law. One lie, if sufficiently compelling and repeat, can shape culture, influence values, and justify actions that would otherwise seem unconscionable. The process is gradual, almost imperceptible, yet the cumulative effect is monumental. Cultural lies, once embedded, are difficult to detect and even harder to dismantle. The lie becomes reality, not because it is true, but because it is widely believed. History provides innumerable examples of the power of a single lie to alter the trajectory of human events. Consider moments when misinformation, rumor, or deliberate deception precipitated wars, revolutions, or societal collapse. In many cases, these pivotal lies were not immediately recognized for their significance. They began as minor distortions, misstatements, or embellishments, yet their impact cascaded through perception, action, and policy, culminating in events that reshaped nations and civilizations. The lesson is stark: lies are not trivial. They are forces that act through human cognition and collective imagination, and their consequences are amplified across time, networks, and institutions. One lie can alter the course of history in ways that are both unpredictable and irreversible. The moral implications of lying are equally profound. Lies are often judged according to intention and context, but even minor falsehoods carry ethical weight. Every lie introduces a divergence between perception and reality, a distortion that affects not only the liar, but everyone who interacts with the consequences. Even when indeed, to protect, comfort, or navigate complexity, lies create potential for harm. The ripple effects of a lie extend beyond immediate awareness, influencing thought, emotion, and behavior in ways that are subtle yet enduring. Ethical responsibility, therefore, is not limited to the act of lying itself, but encompasses the awareness that even a single untruth carries consequences that are disproportionate to its size. Consider the dynamics of trust, which lies at the heart of all human relationships. Trust is fragile, difficult to establish, and easily fractured. A single lie can erode trust, retroactively reshaping perceptions of past interactions and intentions. Even when a lie is discovered long after it was told, its impact can retroactively alter understanding, emotion, and behavior. Relationships do not exist solely in the present. They are cumulative experiences layered over time. A single falsehood has the capacity to disturb these layers,